Imagine a life where your emotions are no longer hijacked by external events. A life where the words of others, the unpredictable twists of fate, or the obstacles that appear in your path no longer have the power to disrupt your peace of mind. This is the promise of Stoic wisdom, emotional freedom through acceptance. We often believe that our emotions are a direct result of external circumstances, a harsh comment from a colleague, a sudden setback, or a troubling situation. Yet, Stoicism reveals a profound truth. Emotions are not automatic reactions. They are shaped by our interpretation of events. The key to emotional mastery lies not in controlling what happens to us, but in how we choose to respond. The Stoic path teaches that acceptance is the doorway to emotional freedom. It's not about suppressing or ignoring our feelings, but about embracing reality as it is, understanding that our suffering often arises from our resistance to life's unpredictability. When we accept what is beyond our control, we break free from the emotional turbulence that so often defines our experience. In this journey, we'll explore how the Stoic philosophers, particularly Marcus Aurelius, mastered their emotions by embracing life's challenges with calm acceptance. Through this practice, we unlock the power to shape our emotional state, not through force or suppression, but through wisdom and choice. Emotional freedom isn't a passive resignation to life. It's an active choice to align with reality, free from the grip of uncontrolled reactions. By embracing acceptance, we discover that the ultimate source of our peace lies not in the external world, but in our ability to transform our responses. This is the essence of Stoic emotional freedom, and it holds the key to lasting tranquility amidst life's storms. Secret 1: You are hurt only when you allow it. Imagine standing in the eye of a storm. The winds rage around you, trees bend and break, and the chaos seems unstoppable. Yet, within the storm's center, there is stillness. This stillness represents your inner self, the part of you that remains untouched by external events, no matter how turbulent they are. This is the essence of the Stoic secret: you are hurt only when you allow it. The Stoics teach that external events, no matter how painful or distressing, are neutral in themselves. They carry no intrinsic power to harm you. The true source of suffering lies in our judgment of those events, the stories we tell ourselves about what they mean. Consider a sharp insult hurled your way. The words themselves are just sounds, vibrations in the air. What stings is your interpretation. They disrespected me. This diminishes my worth. I must retaliate to restore balance. These judgments, not the insult, are what hurt you. Intriguingly, this secret doesn't advocate for emotional suppression. Instead, it calls for a shift in perspective. The next time you feel hurt, pause. Ask yourself, is this pain coming from the event itself, or from my perception of it? By doing so, you begin to reclaim power over your emotional state. This practice transforms the way you interact with the world. Instead of being a reactive participant, you become the calm eye in the storm, observing events with clarity. Insults, disappointments, and failures lose their sting because you no longer permit them to define your inner peace. The Stoic truth: hurt cannot enter unless invited. By mastering your perceptions, you unlock a profound freedom, an invincibility of the soul. Let the storm rage. Your stillness will remain unshaken. Secret 2: Anger fades when expectations align with reality. Anger is like a sudden storm that sweeps through, often leaving destruction in its wake. It arrives quickly, fueled by a sense of injustice, frustration, or unmet desires. But have you ever noticed that the most furious storms often occur when we're expecting one thing and reality serves us another? The more your expectations are at odds with reality, the more intense your anger can become. What if there's a way to dissolve this storm, to calm the rising tide of frustration? The Stoic insight here is simple yet profound. Anger fades when our expectations align with reality. Think of it like setting out on a long journey. If you expect the road to be smooth and easy, any bump or obstacle feels like a betrayal. Your irritation grows with each difficulty, because you're constantly measuring the rough patches against a perfect, idealized version of the trip. But what if you acknowledged from the start that roads are rarely without their potholes? What if you accepted that challenges, delays, and detours are simply part of the journey? In that case, each bump would no longer be a cause for anger. it would simply be another part of the experience. This, in essence, is the Stoic way, embracing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. The Stoics teach us that anger is born when our internal expectations collide with the external world. We want things to go smoothly. We want people to treat us justly. We want life to unfold according to our desires. But reality often has other plans. When we resist reality, when we want it to conform to our ideals, we sow the seeds of anger. Anger, then, is not an inevitable reaction to life's injustices, but a byproduct of our resistance to them. Imagine a situation where someone cuts you off in traffic. Your initial response might be irritation or fury. How dare they do that? But if you stop for a moment and reframe the situation, you may realize that traffic is unpredictable. People drive recklessly all the time. The road is full of distractions. When you accept that these things happen regularly, you stop expecting perfect drivers and instead see the situation for what it is, another moment in an imperfect world. When you shift your expectation from, everyone should be careful, to, people often make mistakes, your anger loses its grip. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This wisdom cuts to the heart of anger. When your expectations are grounded in the reality that life is messy, unpredictable, and often frustrating, you are less likely to be blindsided by anger when things don't go your way. Instead of seeing challenges as disruptions to your plans, you begin to see them as part of the natural flow of life. So, how can we apply this powerful insight? Reframe your expectations. Begin by adjusting your expectations to reflect reality, not fantasy. Life is not always fair, people don't always behave as we want them to, and circumstances often change without warning. By accepting this, you can stop expecting perfection and start expecting the unexpected. This shift in mindset prevents you from becoming overly disappointed when things don't go according to plan, and by extension, it prevents anger from surfacing. Cultivate patience and acceptance. When you feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself, what did I expect here? Did you expect people to behave in a certain way? Did you expect things to go as planned? Once you identify your expectations, ask yourself whether they were realistic. Often, the key to dissolving anger is recognizing that the situation didn't meet your expectations because you may have placed unrealistic demands on it. Embrace imperfection. Realize that imperfection is not only inevitable but also valuable. Life's imperfections challenge us, teach us, and help us grow. By accepting that things won't always go as planned, you open yourself to a life with less frustration and greater peace. This doesn't mean you don't strive for better or seek improvement. It means that you accept life's messiness as part of the process. Control your reactions. You cannot control the actions of others, the chaos of the world, or the unpredictability of life. But you can control how you respond to them. This control over your reactions is where true power lies. When you align your expectations with reality, your emotional response becomes a choice. You no longer need to react with anger when life doesn't conform to your idealized vision. Instead, you can respond with equanimity, understanding, and acceptance. Why is this alignment so powerful? When your expectations are in harmony with reality, you stop setting yourself up for disappointment. Anger thrives in the space between what we expect and what actually happens. When this gap closes, anger dissipates. You stop feeling like the world is constantly wronging you, and instead, you begin to view the world as it truly is, a place of uncertainty, unpredictability, and yes, occasional injustice. But it's also a place of opportunity, growth, and learning. This Stoic secret is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about changing your perspective, about seeing life through a lens that doesn't demand perfection but embraces reality in all its complexity. When you let go of unrealistic expectations, you create space for peace, calm, and an emotional freedom that allows you to move through life without the constant burden of anger. Ultimately, the secret to overcoming anger is not controlling the world around you, but controlling your expectations of it. When you accept life's unpredictability and imperfections, you no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You become a master of your own emotional world, reacting to the ever-changing tides of life with grace and resilience. This alignment between expectation and reality doesn't just reduce anger, it transforms your entire approach to life. Secret 3. Fear is conquered by focusing on what you control. Fear, an emotion as ancient as humanity itself. It's a signal, a survival mechanism designed to keep us safe. But in the modern world, fear often mutates into something far less useful, a paralyzing force that clouds judgment, saps energy, and robs us of peace. How can we combat this deeply ingrained emotion? The Stoics believed they had the answer, a profound strategy rooted in the fundamental distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. Step into the scenario. A sudden storm looms on the horizon. Dark clouds gather, and the wind picks up, shaking your surroundings. Your mind races. What if the storm destroys your home? What if you're injured or lose something valuable? This is fear in action, pulling your attention outward, into a realm of uncertainty where your power is limited. Now consider this. The storm isn't the true source of your fear. The Stoics taught that events themselves are neutral. It's your thoughts and judgments about them that ignite fear. The storm is simply a storm. It becomes terrifying only when your mind assigns it that label. Fear, then, is less about the external world and more about your internal response. Here lies the Stoic secret. The key to conquering fear is to narrow your focus, drawing a clear boundary between what you control and what lies beyond your influence. Fear thrives when your mind strays into the domain of the uncontrollable, worrying about outcomes, other people's reactions, or the whims of fate. To neutralize it, you must reclaim your power by centering your attention on the inner circle of control, your thoughts, actions, and choices. This is not about denial or wishful thinking. The Stoics didn't advocate ignoring real dangers or pretending challenges don't exist. Instead, they taught the art of preparation and acceptance. If you fear failure at work, focus on what you can do to prepare. Hone your skills, manage your time, and deliver your best effort. If the result is still uncertain, embrace it. Fear loses its grip when you recognize that no amount of worry will change an outcome outside your control. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, put it succinctly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Imagine the transformation this mindset can bring. A storm becomes an opportunity to practice resilience. A challenging conversation turns into a test of your patience and clarity. Even life's greatest uncertainties, illness, loss, or death, become less daunting when viewed through the Stoic lens. You may not control the occurrence of these events, but you can control how you meet them. Let's explore this further. One practical Stoic exercise for conquering fear is premeditatio malorum, or premeditation on adversity. This involves visualizing potential challenges or setbacks and mentally rehearsing your response. By anticipating difficulties and planning how to handle them with wisdom and composure, you train your mind to remain steady in the face of fear. This isn't pessimism, it's a proactive way to fortify your courage. Another technique is embracing voluntary discomfort. By deliberately stepping outside your comfort zone, facing small fears daily, you build a tolerance for uncertainty and adversity. Whether it's practicing public speaking, enduring physical discomfort, or tackling a task you've been avoiding, each act of courage strengthens your ability to confront larger fears. What about detachment? The Stoics emphasize the importance of not tying your happiness to specific outcomes. If your sense of well-being hinges on things you can't control, like others' opinions or external success, you leave yourself vulnerable to fear. Instead, cultivate inner stability by anchoring your contentment in values and virtues, things that no external force can take away. Here's the paradox of fear. When you focus intently on controlling everything, you feel powerless. But when you surrender control over the uncontrollable and focus on mastering your own responses, you discover an immense reservoir of strength. Fear dissipates, replaced by a calm confidence that you can handle whatever comes your way. The Stoic revelation is simple yet profound. You don't need to command the winds and the waves to navigate life's storms. All you need is the ability to adjust your sails. By mastering what lies within your grasp, your thoughts, actions, and attitudes, you rob fear of its power, transforming it into a fleeting shadow rather than a looming giant. Ultimately, the Stoic path leads to freedom. Not freedom from life's challenges, but freedom from being ruled by fear of them. This shift in perspective doesn't just make you more resilient, it empowers you to live fully, with courage, clarity, and peace. Fear, when faced with the sharp focus of Stoic wisdom, becomes not a master, but a teacher. Secret 4. Emotional freedom comes from acceptance. Imagine you're standing in front of a vast, turbulent ocean. Waves crash violently against the shore, each one seemingly bigger and more powerful than the last. The roar of the surf threatens to overwhelm you, and you instinctively feel the urge to fight it, to control it, to stop it. But what if, instead of battling the ocean, you simply accepted it for what it is, vast, wild, and beyond your control? What if, in that moment of acceptance, you discovered a profound peace? This is the essence of Stoic wisdom when it comes to emotions. The Stoics understood that our emotional life is like that ocean, an unpredictable force, constantly in motion. Our natural inclination is to fight, resist, or suppress emotions, thinking that doing so will bring us peace. But in truth, resistance only intensifies their grip on us. The secret to emotional freedom, according to the Stoics, lies not in resisting emotions but in accepting them as they arise, with full awareness and without judgment. But how does this actually work in practice? Imagine you're in a stressful situation, maybe a disagreement with a friend, a harsh criticism at work, or even something as simple as being stuck in traffic. Initially, your body reacts, your heart races, your mind swirls with frustration, anger, or fear. These are emotional triggers, and in that moment you might feel compelled to react impulsively, perhaps lash out, shut down, or stew in negative thoughts. The Stoics, however, offer a radically different approach. Instead of letting those initial emotional impulses dictate your actions, you take a step back and simply acknowledge what you're feeling. You don't judge it, you don't label it as bad or good, you just observe. This is the first key to emotional freedom, acceptance. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that the first step in overcoming any negative emotion is to realize that emotions, like everything else, are a part of nature. They arise in us as a natural response to the world around us, but they do not define us. By accepting that emotions are fleeting, temporary, and not inherently harmful, you begin to create space between the emotion and your response to it. This space is where true freedom lies. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or indifference. Acceptance is not about being passive in the face of emotional turmoil. It's about recognizing that while you can't control the initial emotional surge, you can control how you choose to respond. You can choose to acknowledge the emotion, whether it's anger, sadness, anxiety, or frustration, and then calmly evaluate whether it's based on a realistic perception of the situation. More importantly, you can ask yourself, what is within my control right now? This leads to the second key of emotional freedom, detachment. The Stoics didn't encourage emotional suppression, but rather emotional detachment. Detachment isn't about disconnecting from your feelings, it's about not being ruled by them. When you detach emotionally, you no longer allow your emotions to control your behavior. You recognize that, while emotions may arise in response to external circumstances, you still have the power to choose your response. You can embrace the wisdom to act according to your principles, not your impulses. Let's take it a step further with a real-world example. Consider a situation where you've been deeply hurt by a friend's comment. It stings. You feel your chest tighten with a surge of anger and betrayal. The natural reaction might be to fire back, to retaliate, or to brood over the insult. But here's where Stoic acceptance can transform the entire experience. Rather than letting the emotional waves carry you away, you pause. You acknowledge the hurt, the anger, but you don't let it define you. You reflect on what you can control in this moment, your response. You remind yourself that the friend's words are their own, and they do not dictate your worth. This moment of reflection, this act of acceptance, creates the space needed to choose a response grounded in wisdom, rather than in reactive emotion. What about when we face painful emotions that we can't easily dismiss? Grief, loss, disappointment. These are intense emotions that can't be fixed, by mere acceptance. But Stoicism teaches that even in the face of profound grief, we have the power to accept the impermanence of life. We can recognize that suffering is part of the human condition, that everything, good or bad, is fleeting. By accepting this, we release the grip that suffering has on our psyche. We acknowledge the emotion without being overwhelmed by it. This creates a powerful sense of inner peace, a recognition that while we cannot escape pain, we can choose how we relate to it. What is the result of this acceptance? The beauty of acceptance is that it ultimately leads to emotional freedom. By accepting emotions as they are, without attaching judgments or allowing them to control us, we create the conditions for emotional resilience. The more we practice acceptance, the less power external events have over our emotional state. We are no longer at the mercy of anger, sadness, or fear. We are free to act in alignment with our values, regardless of how we feel in the moment. The Stoics invite us to embrace our emotions with wisdom, to accept them as temporary visitors rather than permanent residents of our hearts and minds. In doing so, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that so often dictates our lives. The ocean of emotion, once threatening and overwhelming, becomes a calm and manageable force when we learn to sail with it, rather than against it. Ultimately, emotional freedom is the ability to navigate life's emotional storms with grace and equanimity, to find peace not by avoiding emotions, but by embracing them with acceptance, detachment, and wisdom. When you master this, you become impervious to the emotional chaos that so often dictates our responses to the world. This is the Stoic path to true emotional freedom. Not the absence of emotions, but the ability to rise above them with clarity and purpose. Secret 5. Envy disappears when you focus on inner growth. Envy is a subtle, insidious emotion, creeping into the heart like a shadow that grows darker the more you try to ignore it. It often arrives uninvited, when someone else succeeds, when a friend achieves something you desire, or when someone's life seems to be flourishing in a way that your own isn't. At first, you might not even recognize it as envy. It disguises itself as dissatisfaction, jealousy, or frustration. But once it takes root, it can color your thoughts and cloud your perceptions. You start comparing, measuring your worth against others, and feeling like something is always just out of reach. But here's the fascinating truth that Stoic wisdom reveals: envy fades not when you strive to outdo others, but when you turn your gaze inward and focus on your own growth. The Stoics understood that envy isn't just a reaction to the success of others. It's a signal that we are looking outside ourselves for validation, happiness, or worth. When we place our sense of well-being in the hands of others, whether it's their achievements, their possessions, or their status, we create the perfect breeding ground for envy to thrive. So, how do we dissolve envy? By shifting our attention from what others have to who we are becoming. Imagine you're standing at the base of a mountain. The peak represents your highest potential, your most authentic self, the person you are striving to become. The mountain, however, is covered with other climbers, some ahead of you, some behind you, but all with their own unique paths. If you focus solely on how much farther they've climbed, how fast they're going, or how much higher their peak seems to be, you will never make progress. But if you turn your gaze to the mountain itself, focus on your next step, your own climb, and the terrain that you can control, the envy melts away. You realize that your journey is your own, and others' paths have no bearing on your success. The Stoics teach us that true fulfillment comes from inner growth, not external comparison. When you focus on the development of your character, your virtues, and your wisdom, you cultivate a richness that no one else can take away. This inner growth is something deeply personal, something that cannot be measured by the yardstick of another's life. The more you invest in becoming the best version of yourself, the less space there is for envy to take root. Think of it this way. The Stoics propose that we all possess a unique inner garden. If we are constantly peering over the fence to see how much more vibrant or abundant the neighbor's garden looks, we become distracted from tending to our own plot. The more we focus on what we lack, on comparing ourselves to others, the less energy we have to cultivate the soil of our own growth. But if we direct our attention inward, tending carefully to our thoughts, actions, and reactions, we find that our own garden blossoms in ways we never expected. This shift in focus is a direct challenge to the way modern society encourages us to think. We live in a world that constantly fuels comparison. Social media, advertising, and societal standards bombard us with images of what we should have, what we should achieve, and who we should be. The result? Envy, frustration, and discontent. But the Stoic way is different. The Stoic approach is to pull away from the external noise and focus on what truly matters: your internal growth and the cultivation of your own character. How do we practically focus on inner growth? Reflect on your progress. Take time to regularly reflect on your own personal journey. What virtues have you been developing? What habits have you cultivated that bring you closer to your ideal self? When you focus on your own growth, the comparison to others becomes irrelevant. Your success is no longer measured by what others are doing, but by how far you've come on your own path. Set meaningful, personal goals, instead of striving for external markers of success, things that can be taken away or surpassed. Set goals that are intrinsic to your own development. Aim to become a more patient, compassionate, or wise person. These goals cannot be overshadowed by someone else's achievements, because they are rooted in your own inner life. Practice gratitude for what you have. Envy thrives on the belief that what others have is more valuable than what you already possess. By practicing gratitude, you turn your focus to the abundance in your own life, whether that's relationships, health, knowledge, or experiences. The more you appreciate what you already have, the less space there is for envy to grow. Celebrate the success of others. The Stoics believed in the importance of seeing the success of others as a reminder that greatness is possible. Instead of feeling threatened by it, learn to view others' achievements as opportunities to grow and inspire. When you embrace their success, you create a sense of camaraderie rather than competition. This shift not only dissolves envy but also strengthens your connections with others. Why is this such a powerful antidote to envy? By focusing on your own growth, you reclaim your power. You stop giving external circumstances or the achievements of others the authority to determine how you feel. You realize that the only true competition is the one between the person you are today and the person you were yesterday. This inner competition, the pursuit of your highest self, becomes the source of your contentment. When you see your own progress, however small it might seem, it becomes a source of deep fulfillment that no external comparison can touch. This focus on inner growth is like turning on a light in a dark room. As you nurture your own potential, envy's grip on you loosens, and you begin to see things clearly. Your success is no longer tied to others' failures or achievements. Instead, you experience the freedom of knowing that your worth is intrinsic and ever-growing, defined by your virtues and actions, not by the external world. Ultimately, the key to dissolving envy is not in achieving what others have, but in cultivating what is within you. By focusing on your own growth, you replace jealousy with inspiration, comparison with self-reflection, and dissatisfaction with deep, abiding contentment. As you strengthen your inner character, the desire to compete with others fades, and you realize that the only thing you need to be successful is to keep growing, day by day, into the best version of yourself.